So we do face to face to give you a front row seat to conversations with the best of the best. Frankly, I believe in episode 1 with Riley Gaines, we knocked it out of the park and it was a great way to begin. But do I have a treat for you today? I'm actually going to pull out the list of things to read about this guy before we introduce him. And I could spend the whole time going over his curriculum vitae, but I'm just going to hit the highlights. He is a New York Times best-selling author of Scars and Stripes, the unapologetic story of fighting the Taliban, UFC warriors, and myself. He's also featured in the book Chosen Soldier. He's an active duty master sergeant, special forces, by the way, Green Beret, black belt in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian and Japanese. Oh, and by the way, black belt in modern Army combative, retired professional MMA fighter, and I'm talking about the big leagues, Strikeforce, UFC. He has hosted the History Channel's Finding Hitler, Discovery Channel's Hard to Kill, the TV documentary Warriors, produced Not a War Story, produced and hosted Iron Dragon TV, featured in films like Ray 15 and Slaves. And he would probably tell you, and we'll ask him, he's a son, brother, husband, dad, entrepreneur, socialpreneur. Some of the most known brands and ventures are Ranger Up, a clothing company, Save Our Allies, rescuing Americans and their allies in combat zones around the world. And of course, Sheepdog Response, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And he's also an education reform champion, creator of Apogee Charter Schools to put education back in the hands of families. And folks, there's a whole list more. Just go to DuckDuckGo or Brave browser and search up his name. He is Tim Kennedy, and it is an absolute honor to talk with an American hero and, frankly, an incredible human being. Tim, thank you for being here and spending time with us today.
That was my pleasure.
So I mentioned that our first guest was Riley Gaines, someone who's gained renown for defending girls and women in private spaces and sports. And I know that you have an affinity for helping people protect themselves and their liberties. So I guess my first question to you is, if you had an auditorium of 100 girls and women who said, I want to know what that guy knows about defending myself, what would you say to him?
Yeah, I don't know anything. But I believe that intrinsic strength is the greatest and most powerful transformative thing that an individual can have. So if you look at my kids, I have 3 daughters and a son. They work hard at everything they do. My 5-year-old daughter does jujitsu. She does ballet. She goes camping with me. She goes canoeing with me. And having those seeds planted young by love and grace and compassion, when those roots take hold, and that oak tree grows, they're just an immovable force. If you want to be bully proof, if you want your kids to be bully proof, love them and then give them opportunities to struggle and face adversities and allow them to overcome them themselves, and then they're just ultimately a force on their own.
That is an answer I didn't expect, but it's an awesome answer. I mean, you start at the fundamental level. You love them, you teach them, you help them grow, because ultimately one day they're going to make choices on their own. So you mentioned jujitsu, and I have to fall on my sword here. I want to be more involved in jujitsu, but in full transparency, my wife, my daughter, my bonus son, they are more involved. And interestingly enough, we were talking to Sean Chitwood. He's our instructor, former world champion. Told him I was going to talk with you today, and I said, "Hey, man, what would you ask him?" He said, "You have to ask him what's in his get home bag." I said, "Well, what is that?" He's like, "Well, if you're away from home and stuff hits the fan, you've got to have this stuff with you." So what's in yours, and do you suggest that other people, as a guy who's totally into preparedness, have one, and what should be in ours?
Yeah, I love that he phrases it that way. Get home. The way, once I get to my house, my house is a fortress. My house is a castle. The first thing I want to be able to do is get to my family. And if I'm at church and something terrible happens, or I'm at school, my own school, or someone else is in an active shooter, like insert any nightmare situation. First priority, is to neutralize the threat. than get to my family. Um, and in some instances, those things may be complementary. They might also be prioritized differently. So get home or get to my family. The first thing I want to do is get all of us together so that I can do my job, which is to protect them. So you're going to find tourniquets in there. You're going to find obviously a weapon with an extra magazine and a flashlight and a red dot. I have some how to open doors tools in theirs, and then a couple of phones. The two phone thing is just a little redundancy, but
Mhm.
I want to make sure I can get to my family and get to them quickly.
So is it being overbearing to say we should all be thinking about that and packing that kind of thing as we go out and about? I mean, the world that we're in today, I mean, I hate to be someone that people look at and go, "Man, you're being hyperbolic." I don't think I am, but you have deep insight into our world in ways that other people don't. Is it wise to have something like that?
Move, communicate, medicate. Those are the four things that every individual has to be able to do. Like the shoot part. If insert any threat, if you don't have a firearm, I don't think you're going to be an asset. You're just a liability. Get out of the way. Run. Move. You have to have the of being able to move yourself, whether that's running, climbing, jumping, sprinting, lifting, carrying. It's the movement is life is a real thing. Being able to get to my family, be able to get my family and get them off the X. Something as simple. We have this fitness course called Protector Fitness.
Mhm.
We have this beautiful woman that works out with us, Mrs. Warren. Her husband Ash also is a black belt, and she was telling a story. She's incredibly fit. I mean, she personifies woman, feminine strength and beauty. She's also jacked, and she was telling a story about fitness for her. Obviously, she looks great, but that's more of a byproduct of what she cares about, which is being healthy, being a good wife, and most important to her is being a good mother to their beautiful, absolutely gorgeous kids. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a moment where she had to move rapidly to move one of her little toddlers out of danger. And she, one, was able to move and then grab this, and her kids are gigantic because, you know, they eat all the good stuff. And then move this little kid, giant little kid, out of the way and into safety. And those are things that I think a lot of people take for granted is the move portion. Communicate. That's like having the ability to get a hold of the people that you love
Mhm.
and be able to communicate clearly with them up, down, and out. And then last is the medicate portion. That's going to take a lot of different forms. I think if we walked into a room right now and you said, if I just took a cross section of Americans and I said, "Hey, how many of you guys have been in a gunfight?" You're going to have some global war on terror guys. Maybe a few of them raise their hand. Maybe there's a police officer in there that's had to do something in the line of duty. But out of those 100, maybe one, maybe. Uh, and but if you say, "Hey, how many of you in here have seen a car accident, or you're at the play gym and someone fell and got hurt? You're at a soccer game or a lacrosse or hockey game, and somebody got cut, somebody broke something." Almost every hand's going to go up.
Mhm.
But how often do we as Americans train in that portion of something that can happen every single day, driving to and from school, driving to and from church, driving to and from work? Is there a medical bag in your car? And if there is, do you know how to use it? Do you know how to pack a wound? Do you know how to splint? Do you know how to create an airway? Do you know how to put on tourniquets? Like these are really important things that are going to be life saving. If you look at Las Vegas, man, if there were 20 more tourniquets there, there'd be 20 more alive people. Just
Yeah.
that blows my mind. So shoot, move, communicate, medicate. I hope everybody takes that seriously. Here at Sheepdog, we take it seriously, and we try to empower Americans to give them those individual skills to be able to be that protector.
Let's talk about, maybe culture and politics a little bit. We're going to open up with you just mentioned Las Vegas, and it was tragic on New Year's Day. The Cybertruck pulled out in front of the Trump International Hotel there, and a guy from Ohio, Matt Leibelsberger, was in that truck. It was tragic. Obviously, ties to Ohio. My understanding is you may have some ties to him. I'm just curious: is there uh, a mindset or a view of it that you have that maybe people in the press aren't talking about?
Um, you know, God rest his soul. He's a veteran of 20 years in special operations, and I'm so happy about the change and the transformative things that are happening, both with Secretary Collins, Doug Collins, newly appointed and confirmed Secretary of VA, and Pete Hegseth, Secretary of
Mhm.
Defense. Um, they are atypical selections that are going to be doing different things both at the VA and the DoD. And we thank goodness, because clearly something's broken.
Yeah,
Clearly we have failed our service members, and they're not going to ask for help. Um, and those guys that aren't going to ask for help are often the ones that desperately need it. So it's the preponderance of responsibility is on us to do the right thing by way of those that have raised their hand to protect the Constitution against foreign domestic enemies, and have served their country selflessly. Cool. Let's take care of them.
yeah,
Let's maybe prioritize them over some of the money that was spent on USAID.
yeah,
Let's make sure we're spending our money on the people that fought and died for this country, or got wounded for this country, or in Matt's instance, I think a lot of those scars were on the inside,
yeah,
and most scars after GWAT typically are. So we got to take care of these guys and
yeah.
gals.
Amen to that. And thank you for all that you're doing in that regard. And I agree with you. I think there's been a shift, and for me, I think about it national or internationally before nationally. And I remember when Javier Milei was elected there in Argentina, I thought, okay, this might be something. And then that cascaded down to Trump and Vance, and then it appears to me, outside of the minority few that are really loud, people are pretty excited about what Elon is doing. They're excited about Pete Hegseth. How do you view this? Has there been a vibe shift in the world and in the country? And how do you, I don't know, interpret what Trump's doing and Elon's doing? You behind it? Do they need to go faster, slower, more specific?
No, we can't. Uh, that's a lot of layers to that question.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, we can't slow down. We if anything, we should accelerate. We the In November, the American people, they demanded change, and so it was clear at the ballot, counting these votes, that the American people wanted agents of change. So we got a president and a vice president as the elected officials, but they're not really the ones that make it happen, right? The secretaries and the directors, these agency chiefs, they're the ones that impose change. And we have a system that is resistant to change. It is designed specifically to keep change at bay. So radical approaches are necessary for change
Mhm.
to happen. So I get right now where people are looking at some of the ways that change is happening, and they're like, "Wow, what is going on?"
Mhm.
Um, it's the only way that it's going to get done. And then you see people like Bernie Sanders, who voted against Tulsi Gabbard, as after Tulsi Gabbard went to bat for him during the
Yeah.
presidential election, and then he betrayed her during her confirmation hearing. It's unconscionable that people are partisan when it is so evident that if change doesn't happen now, our republic is destined to fail. We are in a window where if we do not follow through on what the
Yeah.
American people asked for and voted for, and then elected people and then appointed and nominated people for this change to happen. If that doesn't happen, this Constitution that we love, this republic that is now is the shining light of freedom on top of the hill for everybody to look at. If it doesn't happen here, I don't think it will ever happen in the Western world again.
I'm with you on that. And, I was excited that Tulsi was approved today in the Senate. If I'm betting. I'm not a betting man, but if I were to bet, I think that RFK probably gets approved 1 a.m. or tomorrow. And my signal on that is Vice President JD Vance is out of the country, and being the tie-breaking vote, he's probably not going to leave the country if they don't have the votes. So I look at this and I go, okay, Trump came in with a plan. He now has his team assembled. He's got the right bus, going in the right direction, the right people in the right seats. Do you think that we're going to see massive action and change in the next 18 months that we've never seen? Or do you expect there to be continued resistance from the bureaucratic state?
Yeah, I hate using partisan words like the swamp. But Elon Musk yesterday next to Trump in the Oval Office was explaining the difficulty of unentangling the bureaucracy that exists within the government.
Mhm.
And it is truly unexplainable. It's indescribable for a regular person to look in on these agencies and we're like, hey, we want change, we want transparency, we want our taxpayers to be spent in these ways. And that seems so easy until you pull a couple of layers back and you read a couple of laws that have been passed that then are overlapped or daisy chained or intertwined or tangled. And the complexity of this is really hard.
Mhm.
Um, and I think over the course of the next 18 months, is like Kennedy, who, they're going to be in charge. He's going to be in charge of 17 agencies,
Mhm.
second largest to DOD, second largest budget, 30,000 employees. Well, right now, until that shrinks.
Right.
The FDA, the CDC, the NIH, these are agencies and individuals that are captured by lobbyists, pharmaceuticals, people that want to see Americans sick because they profited off of it. They don't want to do anything preventative. Neither do the insurance companies because they get kickbacks off of medications that are prescribed for illnesses. So there's no incentive for them to do it. And so, like, this is a really hard system when there's billions and trillions of dollars that are motivating people to do the opposite of what's good for the taxpayer and the average American. And these brave men and women, the dream team. This is who they are. This is the Tulsi Gabbard, the Kash Patels, the Kennedys, and the Elon Musks, and now the Mike Waltzes and the Joe Kents. They're coming off the top rope, and they have to. They have to.
Is it bananas to you? You said a couple of things there. Number one, I was struck by Elon yesterday. He's so brilliant, but he made it so simple. And it was basically like we have to turn over the rocks. And if we can't explain spending, we need to look into it. And by the way, we're paying more interest in than we are to fund our defense. So we've got to cut stuff like that's. But there's this massive resistance, and then you have somebody like RFK Jr. who's like, well, we probably do need to eat good food and make sure that we're not using drugs for everything and have a better lifestyle. And they call him a conspiracist. Like, this is bananas. Like, what do you make of, because it's not only the bureaucrats, like, right? There are people I see out on social media, on my Facebook timeline, and they're like, oh, this Elon Musk is an evil billionaire and RFK Jr. is a conspiracist. And I'm like, it's almost like they have died to common sense.
They're blinded. The confirmation bias is so dangerous and so real right now, where they have an idea in their head and then they're looking for any granule of support for something that's not really rational or logical. And confirmation bias is a disease and a contagion that spreads, especially when we're as divided in this partisan world as we're living in right now. It makes no sense when you have a man that stands there and is like, "Hey, we need to eat healthy food to be less obese, and we have to exercise." And they're like, what is this guy talking about? He's just an anti-vaxxer. No, he's not. That's not what he said. He said eat clean. He said be less fat. And he's like, and then absolutely is he not an anti-vaxxer? As a matter of fact, he is pro-vaccine, but he's pro-research. So he wants research to be done and transparent research to be done so that parents can make informed decisions about what we're injecting into our kids. And if somebody's not on board with that, we really have to question their motives. And similarly, on the Doge side, when you have a guy that they pissed off the wrong guy with autism, They pissed off the wrong they pissed off the wrong billionaire.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't need stuff. What happened was, had this election not went the way that it went in November, they were going to destroy SpaceX, their freedom of speech, and X. They were going to continue censorship in ways that we know without a doubt, as Zuckerberg clearly explained, agencies and organizations within the United States government, things that would have gotten me deplatformed to say, we now know are 100% true. These conspiracy theories that we said, hey, we're being censored, whether it's about a laptop or about how COVID can still be transmitted even after you've been vaccinated, or that it came out of a lab in Wuhan, any of those things, or even mentioning the word ivermectin,
Yeah.
would have gotten you
That was huge.
deplatformed. Now we know all of those conspiracy theories are true, they're factual, and are a First Amendment right of being able to, of freedom of speech, of saying things, were being specifically censored by our own government.
Yep.
And if you are against freedom of speech and you want censorship, and you're labeling it with misinformation or disinformation, label it however you want. You're following the fascist playbook of propaganda and controlling information, just like Hitler did in 1942, 1943, 1944. So, don't come at me as if you're in this moral high ground when you're the one aligned with radical ideologies that are in direct conflict with the founding documents of our country, being the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
I know our time is running out, but you mentioned radical ideologies, and I have to ask you about this. I get anxiety. I literally, on the way here to the studio, I was talking to my 12-year-old daughter, and she shares with me what goes on at her school during the day, and I wake up sometimes, Tim, at 3 in the morning, and I'm like, she's in public school, and I'm like, is there going to be that moment where it gets to the tipping point? You can tell somebody something untrue, but if you tell them it long enough, it becomes their truth. So I guess my question is, what do you make of all the bovine excrement going on in our schools with the trans activism, with the politicization of really everything from math to history? It's like if it's not taught in a progressive manner, then all of a sudden you're just this alt-right crazy parent.
Yeah, I mean, Department of Education is a complete captured entity by ideologues that don't care about education. I'm just, calling the spade a spade here. They have been trying to radicalize kids for the past 20 years. That has been their sole purpose. Every single measurable metrics on what education looks like, they have been failing in that, and they don't care about it. They're not educators. They're just ideologues that are perpetuating these ideas. When you look at a school, a classroom of 40 kids and 36 of them are gender fluid or trans or gay, you're like, hey, where was this introduced? Oh, it was introduced 2 years ago in the classroom by a teacher. And over the course of the 24 months, every single one of those seeds that have been planted and nurtured has now grown into somebody that is mentally unwell. And those institutions are just perpetuating this social contagion that is against every single rational value that America was founded on. So Department of Education, they're on the chopping block. They know it. They know that they've messed up. That pendulum has swung too far to radical. If your kids that change is not going to happen fast enough. So it's not like tomorrow, Elon Musk is going to come in with the Doge team, and Mr. Big Balls and start, looking at spreadsheets
Right.
and be like, oh, this is quickly fixed. It's not. It's going to take years. So if I was going to encourage a parent, it's take education back. You, the parent, are the one in charge of your child, their education, their soul, their integrity, their ethics, their view on the world. And if you aren't doing it, somebody else will. That space, that delta is going to be filled by somebody that wants to radicalize your child.
Is the only way to do that to get him into some place like Apogee?
I mean, obviously, I love Apogee. I love everything that we're doing because we believe that the family unit is everything when it comes to education. The responsibility falls to the parents, and they have to lead by example. So they have to be healthy. They have to be reading. They have to be off their phones. They have to be exercising. They have to be setting the standard of what discipline and grit and hard work looks like. And then that trickles down clearly to the kid because it's contagious. Just like these dangerous ideas are contagious, so is courage, so is hard work, so is
Amen.
grit. And, is so is picking up the Bible and giving it a good read, in the morning and praying with the
Yeah.
kids. Every single one of these things is contagious and it's passed on. Apogee at apogeestrong.com, that is something that we're giving to families to start their own schools. Those are our schools. Those are their schools. And so whether you're homeschooling, finding a school like Apogee, starting your own school, and just finding a bunch of other parents, we now have Apogee Anywhere, where like pull your kids out of school and get with 5 or 6 other families, really do it for free, and you're doing it with other like-minded people that share your values, and all it takes is a little bit more work and individual responsibility, the stuff that this country was founded on.
Amen, brother. I know there's a very small slice of the pie that maybe doesn't follow you or doesn't know where to follow you yet. Just take a second and tell people who are hearing this or seeing this and being introduced to you for the first time where they can get more of you because you're doing God's work, man.
Yeah, I'm trying. Tim Kennedy MMA is most of the social handles. Sheepdogresponse.com is where we do all the tactical training for Americans. And we're actually international, so we welcome everybody that wants to value freedom. And then Apogee Strong is if you're going to look for a school, if you're going to try and find a location, you can go to apogeestrong.com. If you want to open your own school, you can do it right there on that website as well. But Tim Kennedy MMA is where I'm at. Just watch out for that comment section. It's spicy these days.
Tim Kennedy, he's an American hero. He's an incredible human being. And I'm indebted. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you.